Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Music Podcast. Thank you so much to my subscribers, return visitors. So appreciate you. If you're not a subscriber, please consider hitting that button. It gives me great opportunities to bring you great guests, like the one I have today, Mr. Will Evankovich. Will is a singer, songwriter, guitarist, producer, etc., etc. In 2004, he formed American Drag, a band in which he was the guitarist and the lead vocalist. In 2007 to 2009, he toured with Jack Blades and Tommy Shaw for their Shaw Blades project. He would also make his debut in musical theater in 2009 as the guitar player for the musical American Idiot. In 2014, Will became a member of the Guess Who, recording and touring with that band until 2021. This is a huge resume. In 2022, after many years working with Tommy Shaw and Styx, Will was officially announced as a member of the band. Will and Styx about to release a brand new record called Circling from Above. It comes out on digital and streaming platforms on July 18th, with vinyl and CDs available now at the merch booth while they're on tour, which Will is now, and we appreciate the time, Will. Thanks so much for taking time.
Thanks for having me.
Man, that's a resume. You've been doing this a long time. It's great to have you in the family of Styx. It's really, really cool. There's been a resurgence in the band with new music, and this third album in 8 years. Before the mission started, this ongoing run of new music, I kind of remember Todd expressing frustration with putting out new music. He's like, why make new music if nobody's going to buy it, kind of thing. Since that time, he's released a solo album. The band's released 3 records. It's just so great to see. There's this renewed desire to expand that catalog. I feel like a lot of that is due to your involvement. You're such a great writer and player, and involved with Tommy so much, and getting new music out. Was that something you brought to the band? Can you pinpoint a moment when the idea shifted, when the tide shifted in the creating new music thing?
I think Tommy and Lawrence and the guys and Todd and everyone else are very creative people, and they're always writing, and it was never a problem for material. I think there was a weird period between 2004 and maybe even 14 that no one knew the state of affairs of the record industry, what was going to happen.
Yeah.
If streaming was the new way and physical copies were going the way of the dodo, it kind of scared a lot of people, and they thought, well, maybe nobody's interested anymore. And it was kind of that way with a lot of bands in the climate of that period. So I understand why, there might have been some hesitation during that time. But overall, I think artists just need to create, and that's what got us here in the first place. So when Tommy started kicking around song ideas to me, and I kicked them to him, it was inspiring enough for us to start working regardless of what climate was going on. It just, good is good, and we're creative people, so that's where that started, I think.
Yeah, and that's how it felt. When you got involved and started, putting your 2 cents in, it's more like a dime at least. You're just such a great writer, and it's
Thank you.
brought so much to the band. It's so grateful as fans. We can see that for sure. It's great to have the band back making new music. The cover art, I want to talk about a little bit about that for this record. For the last record, huge, great, interesting, intriguing cover art. This record as well. Um, Let me go with a quote. It's in the press release, and I think there's a relationship here. They're prevailing and we're failing, you said. We're not like the rest of the creatures that work in stewardship together, like the birds and the bees and all the other things. We do things and then create waste for ourselves that ends up harming us. And I kind of see that relation in this cover art. Again, intriguing, interpretive, all those things. Um, Tell me a little bit about the cover art and how involved you were and how much it speaks to the theme of the record.
We were kicking around some ideas, and we were kind of on the wrong path, I think, for a second of the cover, and I think the first, it's not a concept record for the record. That's I mean,
Thank
it's
you.
yeah, people think it is because the first couple songs are definitely a thread, and those first couple songs do speak to the theme of the cover of the record, about man's ambitions and all of the things that we've done, and some of them are counterproductive, and some of them are very productive. But yeah, it's also, I think there's a little bit of polarization in people now. Not even a little bit, a lot, as you can see online. There's a lot of division. We are kind of working against each other, and it's a little sad, because if we could take a tip from some of the animal kingdom, I think we could actually do great things if we spent more time working with each other instead of against. So that's kind of the theme. And one of the creatures that I noticed being obviously working well in terms of stewardship is the starling. They're obviously, the way the formations are amazing. One bird moves a fraction of an inch, the all follow. It's crazy. And so Tommy's a huge bird fan, or a bird nerd, if you will.
Right.
And when I brought up the concept of the starling, he talked about them in his backyard and appreciating them and all the other birds that he was definitely on board. And I'm a giant Pink Floyd fan, so that Storm Thurgeson powerful image of something that's, here's a dilapidated satellite that's not working, it's broken. Here's the formation of these starlings. It's pretty remarkable. So again, we're failing and they're prevailing, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think the animals and everything else will be here a lot longer than we will if we keep up where we're at.
No doubt. Like I say, it's a powerful image. It's what we're seeing first. A lot of people not hearing the record. It's exciting. It brings that intrigue and mystery, and there's a that workup to what it sounds like, and I think when the marriage happens for the fan, it's going to be spectacular, like it was the last time out. So really great, really great. um in the press, you're quoted as saying, "We all know that the institution of Styx is the most important thing." um as the producer here, what do you have to do to secure that institution of Sticks sonically? Is there a preset on the board where all the levels go to a certain place, or like the guitarist's pedal board, there's all the right ones are there to get a certain sound? Is it that technical and in the box, or do you get in the studio and you just massage it until we get to that institution of Sticks? How do you actually capture all of that sonically?
I think there's no magic button, but you do have people in the band that understand what the past catalog was, what the recipes were typically, which are just great car horn stacked vocals. It was funny, with a sidebar on that. People, we've had in the past some mixers mix the band with the chorus harmonies, and I always hear a lead singer like in the front of it, and I'm like, oh, that works for most things. That actually doesn't work for Styx. What works for Styx is everybody's equal. It's a giant car horn of vocals, and that's one of the signature things they do.
Right.
Another thing is stylized guitar parts and stylized keyboard parts with the old catalog. Everything worked so well together on those old records that no one was getting in each other's way. You got these great foundational bass parts by Chuck and John, the drums, the rhythm section just kind of stayed out of the way of the front of house.
Hmm.
It was a very powerful recipe, and it doesn't take a lot for us to get there because we have three of the five guys in the band, and we have these other guys who totally understand what the institution of Styx is. So it doesn't take a lot to get to where the Styx sound happens. It just kind of naturally does.
And that's got to be so great for you as a producer, to have that understanding, because it could be difficult when you put new parts into the machine, if those parts don't get it, or they're doing their own style of thing, it could be difficult to capture, and you sure capture it.
Oh, thank you.
It's all there. And it feels very wooden nickel to me. Even with the logo, is the old wooden nickel logo, the one used in the very beginning. And these songs have that feel, that really, really pure Styx feel. For me, I grew up with in Chicago here, with Best Thing and Lady on the radio, and Man of Miracles, one of my first records I fell in love with as a kid. So I really get that feel from this recent music. Um, is that something that's intentional? Was that talked about at all when going into the record? The intention of you going back to that time?
Never premeditated. We don't ever do stuff like that. That said, Tommy and myself are huge fans of John Serluski. I mean, people don't know that, but Tommy loves him. He thinks like, oh God, I love some of those songs on those records. And I do too. Like we were talking about the song A Day, which is fabulous because it sounded like Serluski was a fan of Genesis and Crosby, Stills and Nash and some of these great, and you
Yeah.
can hear that in some of those compositions. And so are Tommy and I and Lawrence. We love that stuff. So I think what gets us there is our mutual love for some of the same influences like the aforementioned and Beatles and Queen and
Right.
the Who, so on and so forth. So if we kind of stay a little bit in that paradigm when we write, because that's our influences, and then when it comes together, it just sounds like the way maybe even old classic Styx sounded because those were their influences as well.
Yeah, and it's so cool, that the way it happens like that too, so organically. It's that's a real message there. You don't, it's not an effort, so to speak.
Right.
It's just all the elements are making that happen. It's really great.
We don't sit down and go, let's try to make a this or a that.
Yeah,
When Tommy brought to me time may bend from the Mission. The intro,
yeah.
the intro written. I'm like, that sounds like Equinox era Styx, and he's like, I didn't mean it to, but it definitely does. And so it's a benefit to have some of the guys, obviously the guys around that.
Right. And it's great that they still respect that time in the band,
Right.
because there was some growth over, from the beginnings, into the more elaborate, pieces of eight and so on. Uh, but I love that little bit of raw kind of
Right.
thing going on. It's really, really great. And a lot of that is here. Um, and I mentioned my growing up with Styx. What was your growing up with Styx? Were you always a fan, or, did you go back to the old catalog?
Well, not to date myself as being a youngster, but I was. I remember at 8 or 9 years old hearing Renegade or whatever it was in the back of my mom's Pinto, and I went, "What in the hell is this?" This is prior to maybe some Grand Illusion, but Pieces of Eight. Those are the records that I was most exposed to because, of course, I was a
Right.
younger age. But I remember them very well, and I remember having to have them and loving those records. We get to play Grand Illusion every night now on this tour, and it's
Oh, cool.
songs like Man in the Wilderness are just so powerful. It's one of my favorites to play in the evening. But yeah, no, I've always been exposed to it. I remember buying Paradise Theater and Kilroy when they came out.
Yeah.
So I've always followed their career and respected their songwriting and arrangements.
That's great. That's great. You mentioned a day. I believe that sticks too. And is there a song from the catalog like that you've always wanted to kind of add to the playlist, or is that something like that even a possibility?
We kick it around a lot. We talk about, best thing would be great to like just throw in a set.
Oh,
It's such a great song. And then another Surluski favorite of ours is Mother Dear. Like what a cool.
yeah,
It's kind of psychedelic. It's kind of cool. I think in the future there'll be some room to put some deep cuts in there, and all the guys are definitely on board with it. So
Yeah, that's great news. Great news. I remember. I think it was with the Cleveland Symphony and a couple other times where they did the medley of things like that. So you heard little parts of Best Thing and things like that, and that was really interesting. So yeah, we'll look for something like that. But let's get into a few of the songs here. The song Michigan. One of my favorites on the record. I really love that song. Michigan as a title. Tell me a little bit about that song.
Well, ironically, that was one of the first batch of songs that Tommy and I wrote together in maybe 2010. I was working on his bluegrass record, The Great Divide,
Hmm.
and he needed me to come in at the end and do some post production work where I kind of took the ball to the finish line. Brad Davis had done an amazing job with Tommy to get all those songs amassed and recorded, and I came in to help him. But that's when we really discovered that we had a writing relationship. And I'd fly to his house in LA, and one of the songs that was written in that period was The Red Storm that would come to be on the Mission, and the other was Michigan. And it was fully flushed out like you hear it now. But those songs were a little weird. Like we were like, is this Styx? I
Right.
don't know. And it took us writing the rest of the Mission to discover that this is what Styx is now, echoing back to what it was, but also what it is now. I mean, this is what the band is now, and some people may not like it, but some people may love it. It's just this is can't help who we are at this point. And like I said, we have several of the old guard with the new guard in the band, and this is the music we're creating, which we're very proud of.
Yeah.
Michigan, back to that, is so lyrically, we were at the time talking about how the internet was actually where it's going now, like be a very bad thing
Right.
and cause all this polarization amongst people. And so we wrote those lyrics and we kind of, as a working title, called it Michigan. And later we're like, well, what's the threat of Michigan? Why are we calling this Michigan?
Right.
But I kind of reminded him, I said, you had that farm in Niles, Michigan, where you in the early 80s, maybe late 70s, I'm not sure when. And there were no cell phones and there was no internet, and life was very tranquil and peaceful. And that was a time where you could think and gather your thoughts. Whereas now there's so much frenetic confusion that title works. I meant, putting
Wow.
that together. So
That's awesome. I mean, that is really what a great story behind that name. I was so intrigued again by that title. Uh, why Michigan?
why Michigan? Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Oh, that's so great. What a great story. Um, we lost the wheel again. You mentioned the influences and things like that. No intent, but I have to ask about we lost the wheel again, and everybody raise your glass. We lost the wheel again gives me a hard nod to the Who. Um, there's a real Who vibe there, and everybody raise your glass. I hear a real Queen feel, especially those guitar sounds. Very Brian Mayish. Um, no intent there on either one. Is that
It's again it's the sum total of our influences coming in. I think with Everybody Raise Your Glass, we kind of decided that might have been like, hey, let's go Beatles a little bit, and see what
yeah,
happens. And we went to this remote location, a friend of mine's studio out in Forestville, California, called In the Pocket. Wonderful room with a Neve, and we're so divorced from the outside world there that we could really concentrate, the three of us, on writing something in a day or two. And we wrote Everybody Raise Your Glass, and it was getting almost too Beatley, to the point where like this is awesome, but it needs to rock it up a bit. And I think we changed the melody and the approach halfway through the writing and went Freddie Mercury with it.
uh,
Suddenly everything clicked. So that was the story with that one. And just a lot of fun. And then of course, since you've got Freddie there, you need Brian there. So Tommy played this amazing guitar solo, which I'm like, hey, let's do the stacks like we did on Key Dive and the Mission and other stuff.
right.
Yeah, Queen's a huge influence on the band for sure.
Yeah, and what a great song! All of this stuff is just so good. We lost the wheel again. The Who. Did you
Yeah, for
get?
sure.
You got that Who vibe from it? Like like I did, and I think a few other people that I see in comments and things like that are
It's
really getting a
100%
Who.
a production ripoff of the Who's Next. But
Yeah.
I'm like, I love that record, and
Oh,
what makes it unique and special is that Pete Townsend uses different elements for textures all over that record that aren't in your conventional wheelhouse. Obviously, the keyboards and the arpers and things like that, but
yeah.
in this case, it was like taking licks on acoustic guitar, like Bargain and some of the Who's Next songs where he's playing all those leads on an acoustic. And I thought, let's go more acoustic rock with this, and and I'll see if I can do a Roger Daltrey impression.
It's another great song. I was just and I love those little nods, and I love to hear those influences come through. I mean, and it still stays sticks. Really, really cool. Um,
Well, real quick, the thread there is that Great White Hope, Lorelei,
mhm.
and then we echoed it with To Those and some of and the Outpost on later records, where we always kind of nod to the Who, and that's a JY thing. He's always been very influenced by the Who.
Yeah, and I know Todd's a huge Who fan
Oh
as
yeah.
well. Just the way he plays, very Keith Moon a lot of times.
He
Uh,
and Perry were like, I'm like, wow, they've been waiting to do this pretty much their whole career to be John and Keith, so
It's cool. It's really, really cool. Um, I get a lot of also I get Boat on the River in a few of these songs, that accordion kind of Italian and inspired sound, mandolin. Blue-Eyed Raven, of course, is the big one here with the fiddle and everything else. Just a beautiful, well-written song. Was the inclusion of those elements planned out? Is that something that you wanted to bring out? I know that "Boat on the River" is like the biggest Styx song everywhere but the U.S. Which it's a hit, but not like everywhere else. It's a worldly huge thing. Um, did you want to bring out that flavor as a almost a theme on a couple of these tracks throughout the album?
again, not premeditated. In fact, because Tommy's such a diverse writer, he had that song almost fully formed in a writing demo that he sent over to me sometime around Crash of the Crown, maybe right as we were finishing it. And I'm like, this is awesome. I mean, he played all the guitars and mandolins and had this kick drum and this. I'm like, this is great. My only complaint is that it was too short, and I'm like, let's do a rock thing at the very end of it and put a bow on it. Um, and anyway, no, it's all that's just lives in Tommy. I'm sure when he came up with Boat on the River, the guys were like, this is a little weird and a little bit of a left turn, but
Sure.
it ended up being a great success in Europe and everyone. It's a fan favorite. I love that song.
Yeah.
But Blue Eyed Raven has those elements, and yeah, I just
Yeah.
kind of before I think there might have been a little bit of fear to like that song's really different, and that song's really different, and that song's different. But we kind of decided to do the Beatles' Rubber Soul on it and go. They're all good. They
Right.
all just
Yep.
it may be a little jarring for people to listen to all these scene changes, but I think it's diverse and I think it's makes for a interesting listen personally.
Totally, totally. And a lot of it, I'm old school, is I'm into sequencing. I want a journey out of a record. I want to go somewhere and then come back and go again. And this does that. And much like Cornerstone, Boat on the River came at the right time. Um, Blue-Eyed Raven comes at the right time. Whenever you hear these little mandolin, Italian inspired things, they come at the right time, and that's how, if you had them all in a row, it might not work. So it sequencing was that had to be a huge part of getting this album together, right?
It's the hardest thing on the planet to do. I mean,
Yeah.
Crash of the Crown was a beast. I mean, Tommy and I have blood on our hands moving things around, listening because we're such an AOR driven band, the album listen is so important to us, and the craft of doing that is paramount. So we spend a lot of time. This one wasn't as hard. We kind of knew where all the pieces were going to go. Um, but Tommy insisted that's the second song on side two. And even through all of our sequencing, he was absolutely right. It worked perfectly there. So
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool, and I love that you take that time, and I love that this band is such a side two kind of band too. That's just always been like that. I love that. Like with "Man in the Wilderness" is probably my favorite song, especially live. Always kind of off on the side, a little bit in the second side kind of thing.
yeah, Grand Illusion's it's a party on side one, and then side two starts to get a little heavy and tell the
Mhm.
story with Man and Castle Walls and
Yeah.
and they lighten it up at the end of the grand finale. It's a beautifully sequenced record.
It is just wonderfully written, isn't it? It's great. Um, I have to address the kind of elephant in the room, especially on social media and recent happenings. The band had to cancel some dates. I see a lot of speculation with that. Tommy vocal trouble, injury. I've seen low ticket sales. I've seen health of JY and everything. I hope everybody's healthy and well. Can you address that at all? Do you want to kind of clear the air with that?
Everybody's healthy. I'm not sure. I really don't know. I don't ask a lot of questions as far as that's concerned.
Okay.
There are people that do their jobs much better than I do in that regard to decide what's working and what's not working. So I can't really speak to it, to be honest with you.
Okay.
We're happy to play, and we're happy to play the schedule. And no, there's no problems with anybody's health. Everything's great.
Right.
But yeah, I really don't. I trust our management and our booking agents, so I know it's the right thing.
Yeah, yeah, excellent. Yeah, and thank you for that. Yeah, it's great to hear that everybody's healthy. It's just that's a blessing. I hate to see all that speculation when nobody really knows, and just leave it alone. It's
Including me.
yeah, there you
I'm
go.
happy to keep playing, and we're going to keep trudging on. We will be playing for as long as we can stand up there. So
Yeah, I know you will, and it's really cool. The Todd show. I remember when the lights went out. I think it was in California. The power went out, and the band came out and played acoustically and sang a little louder for the crowd without amplification. Really one of those memorable kind of things. Made a really bad situation into a memorable, wonderful, positive thing. And I saw that Todd missed some shows, sick, food poisoning or something, maybe where Jeff from the crew steps in, plays drums, something like that. There's that's tough for the band. What's going to happen? There's that turmoil of there's a little bit of a shakeup. How's that situation in particular? How much fun was that? That's got to be a little bit of fun too, right? Especially
absolutely.
when you pull it off.
The power out or the power out, I was there because I was playing the mission shows with them. So when we
Right.
did the power out in Monterey, I think it was, or Carmel,
Yeah.
one of the two. What's cool about the band is no matter what, we want to entertain our fans and our crowd. It's so no matter what we'll do, we'll do a handstand out there. It doesn't matter. We'll go
Yeah.
out, powers out, we'll play. If lightning comes in, which I've seen stuff online where people are disappointed when things get canceled due to lightning, but we have no control over lightning. It's literally the venue has a policy for safety, whereas if lightning comes within 5 miles of the venue, they got to get everyone out there. It's going to take a minute for a crowd to get out and get into safety before lightning comes in. That said, unless if there's a curfew, that's pretty much the end of a show, and that's not
Right.
on us.
Right.
If if there's no curfew and the crowd sticks around, I've waited around for 2 hours to come back out to finish the show. They paid the money, they've come. We want to honor everybody's experience, and we will do everything in our power to do that. As far as Todd's concerned, yeah, that was one time. It was
Right.
recently, and I mean he was fine in the afternoon, but we eat a lot of different food out here, and
Yeah.
something that's been sitting around. Who knows? I don't know what happened, but I know that I mean, he was very sick, and we were in the good hands of Jeff Hines, who is a really remarkable, capable drummer, and he's he's got the song on the songbook under his belt. He has for several years, but he never knows when he might have to jump in like that. And he did a great job. We had fun, you know.
That, that's what I mean. You had fun, and instead of turning, something that's really, it's quite nerve wracking. I would imagine. How is this going to work? And then Todd's a huge part of that sound, of course, and he's not the easiest guy to to emulate. So yeah, and you had fun. That's great to hear. That is really cool. Uh,
It's a great time. Yeah, I mean, Jeff's a great drummer. Everyone's got a different feel and approach to music, but at the end of the day, it all works, and it can be a new fun experience. So
Yeah. And I look at that as a fan and I'm like, man, I wish I was that show. Any stick show is a great show, but that one has that. You don't always get to see that,
right,
so
right,
it's pretty cool, very unique and very positive, and see everybody smiling through it is great.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's really cool. You're very involved with The Great Divide. Will we see another solo album or side project from Tommy, or Will Evankovich solo album or anything like that?
I'm always working on songs, and I have flirted around with the idea of releasing some of the song catalog that I've amassed over the years. So it's possible that I do that in the next year or two in the intermezzo of the Styx universe. As far as Tommy's concerned, you'd have to ask him
Yeah.
whenever he's ready he and I have both written a lot of songs together, and he's written a lot of songs that would be more geared towards or would be a solo album.
Okay.
But that again is totally up to him. So
Yep, yep. It's great. Yeah, and anything you guys do together is a blessing, man. We're so appreciative of everything you've put out there for us as fans.
thank you.
It's great. I see everybody enjoying it. It's fantastic. The
Thanks.
band's on the road. Go get the record. You're selling vinyl and CD at the merch booth, so it is available July 18th for streaming and digital. Well, this has been great, man. Thank you so much for the
Thanks you.
time.
Thank you for your great questions. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Hope to see you on the road.
Absolutely. We'll be here.
All right.
All right, man.
All right. Take care. Thanks,
Take
Will.
care. Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye bye.